I'm Mitchell R. Tucker, and I am super pumped to have our next guest with us today. He's known for flipping over 400 houses. He has over 63 rentals, and now he teaches thousands of others how to do the exact same thing with his online presence. Welcome, Mr. David Dodge.
Hey, buddy, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. Thanks for coming, man. I'm really excited about this one. I came across you on your Instagram, and I said, man, I got to talk to this guy. I'm pumped because real estate is really a big goal of mine going into 2020. So, can you share with us briefly about yourself and what it is you do exactly?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, I'm a real estate investor, and my company has three different main things that we do. So, first and foremost, we are wholesalers, which is a type of real estate investing where we flip paperwork. Sometimes we have to buy the house before we sell it, but most of the time, like 70 or 80% of the time, we get a property under contract and then we know of other investors, other rehabbers, other landlords that want those deals. So we just sell the paperwork directly to them. That's wholesaling. So that's the main thing that we do to generate leads. And then we cherry pick those leads and keep the best ones that come in and we sell the rest. So whenever we go about cherry picking those, we do one of two things, which is the other two divisions of the company. One would be fix and flip. So we'll fix those up and then we'll list those on the retail market with an agent and find a retail buyer. The second will be we'll keep those as rental properties and rent those out. We have a property manager who handles that, and we keep that for long-term wealth creation and cash flow. So fix and flip, landlording via rental properties, and of course wholesaling, which is my favorite. So that's basically what we do. I've been doing it full time for about 5 years. I've been investing in real estate for 15, but the first 10 years I didn't know about motivated sellers. I didn't know about being able to buy properties off market. Um, I mean, I knew about it. I just didn't really like think that that was like a big thing, right? I didn't think that there was a lot of
Yeah.
money to be made there, and it wasn't something that I thought was like, hey, let's explore this further. So yeah, for the most part, been investing for 15, but the last five, I've really been going full time and really, doing a lot of marketing heavily towards trying to find motivated sellers. Like the first 10 years, I was just buying maybe one house a year. Um, and the the houses that I was buying during that time, I was paying retail for them. I was getting an 80% loan from a bank, so I was having to put down 20% on these properties. So again, you have to save a lot of money to do that, and um, it's hard for most people to save 20 or 30,000 bucks. I mean, it's hard for me to save 20 or 30,000 bucks. So, it's a longer approach to getting rental properties. Whereas now, I find motivated sellers. I'm able to get these properties at a discount. I'm able to add value by rehabbing these properties, and then I'm able to get loans based upon the appraised amount of the property. Therefore, I can not leave a bunch of money in it. Whereas before, I'd have to leave 20% in these no matter what. Well, now we've elevated our investing game and we're using a strategy called the BRRRR strategy, but it essentially allows me to acquire properties for little to no money. On average, I think we're leaving about 1,500 bucks in every property that we acquire that we keep after we refi. Now, the caveat is it's not right away. We still have to borrow the money to buy it, also borrow the money to rehab it. But once we go get it refinanced, we're typically all in at at or below, excuse me, at or below that 80% of what the bank's lending us. And in some cases, we can actually walk with a few grand. We try not to, but it happens from time to time. But we'll be able to pay back that lender that we borrowed the money from to purchase. And oftentimes, that's the same lender that will lend money to rehab it as well. We prefer it to be the same person. It's easier on the paperwork side of things. But we'll be able to refinance and get them 100% paid back for their principal and their interest, as well as acquire the asset that's rented and rehabbed and be all into that for little to no money. So that's kind of where I'm at. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, 35 years old. So I've been at this since I was about 20, but really only full time since I was 30, just the last 5 years. To date, I flipped probably close to 500 properties in the last 5 years. And I think the last count I took, we had 63 rental properties. Now that's not doors. Our door count's probably closer to 85 or 90. We have 63 properties though at this point. So that's me and my partners. And I have a lot of different partners in different markets or on different properties, right? So it's not all like I have one partner or two partners on all 63. I may have one partner on this group of 5, and I may have two partners on this group of 6, and no partners on this group of 5, and you know what I'm saying, so on and so forth. So I have my hand in 63 individual properties at this point. So trying to build that up to about 150. May have to take a step back and sell a few off in this crazy time that we're in right now, just to keep the lights on, because we don't make a ton on these properties, maybe 150 to 250 a month on each property, because this is not a get rich fast game. I just want to make that very clear. You can build a tremendous amount of wealth with real estate, but it takes time. Somebody else pays off the loans, which is the coolest part. You make a little bit month to month, which is called your cash flow. But you never know when there might be a capital expenditure of a new roof or an HVAC or whatever, it might be that, requires a capital infusion. So the money that we make every month, we don't really get to take a whole lot of that home. We basically just keep it in our account to pad for capital expenditures or to use towards the next rehab or the next rental that we're going to be buying. So my strategy isn't to make a ton of money today because that's taxed. I'd rather build wealth that's not taxed and have a ton of money later. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, that's good. And you've been able to accomplish so much, and you're only 35 years old. One of my questions was, how old were you when you flipped your first house? Was it at 20 years old is when you flipped your first house?
No, I bought my first rental property when I was 20.
Wow.
So I didn't really flip my first house probably until I was like 27, 28, somewhere in that range. And I wasn't even full time in real estate. It was just a property that I bought to just fix up. And that property took me, it took me a really long time to, flip. It actually took me about 7 months to flip and rehab and do everything with. I think my camera's dying here, so we're going to switch over to this guy again. And in the process, I did everything myself. I did all of the plumbing, electrical, the roofing, the framing, and it took me 7 months because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was basically hiring people with the caveat of, hey, I'm hiring you to do this, but I'm going to be there helping you. And if you don't like that, then I don't want to hire you. I'm basically hiring you to teach me how to do this. And I didn't want to learn how to do these things because I wanted to like go do all the tile work on all my properties. No, I wanted to learn how to do it so I knew later what the project consisted of. So whenever I was getting bids for a project or helping me to determine my scope of work and my repair estimates, I wanted to learn how to do all these things. So never again will I do that, but I am glad I did it once, right? I'm really glad I did it once. I got a little kitty that just ran across the desk here. I had to grab her. So that was a great learning experience though, to learn how to do drywall and framing and electrical and plumbing and roofing and all these things that I hadn't done in the past. I was able to learn. It took about 7 months, and when it was all said and done, I was into the property for what it was worth. So I didn't make anything on it. However, that was my real estate education. So that 7 months was like me going to real estate college and learning how to flip a property, right? Not so much like a real estate agent would go to their, training to be an agent. This was training to be an investor and to learn, hey, what did I do wrong? Well, one, I shouldn't have taken 7 months to flip it. I should have taken 2. But I did it all myself and I learned. So that's what it is, right? I also overpaid for that property. Didn't know that until I went to sell it, right? The rehab is the rehab. You can't really adjust that, especially if you're going to do a minimum rehab, right? So you have to always be buying your properties right. And that's kind of where I got a lot of lessons from that, is because I overpaid, for that property. And in hindsight, though, it was the best house that I ever bought, even though I didn't make any money, because I learned so much about how to buy real estate, how to rehab real estate, how to estimate the cost of fixing the property, as well as the additional costs that go into flipping a house that you don't really know until you go to sell a property, right? So let's talk about some of those real quick. You have to pay an agent to list that property. You have holding costs, you have closing costs, you have utilities, and if you borrowed the money to purchase the house, then you have costs with your lender. So those alone add up to like 15%, between 10 and 15% of the total cost of the project. So, whenever somebody calculates their project and they don't know what they're doing, they may say, hey, let's factor in a 20% margin for profits. But if they're not also factoring in, that 5 to 10% cost to purchase and own and sell, that 20% margin may go from 20% to 5%. So now what we do is we calculate in a minimum margin of 30% for profit, and half of that goes away to the holding, closing, and acquisition, right, of the property. And then the other half is what we would consider our profit. So now we discount our properties at 70%, and it helps pad in for anything in the market that we're unaware of, underestimating our repairs and or overestimating the value of the property that we may think it will be later, which is our ARV. So tons of lessons learned from that first rehab, and hopefully you guys can learn a couple lessons from me sharing that right now.
Absolutely. So 70%, that's really the magic number. So that's when you're looking at buying a house, you want to try and get it to where you're purchasing it at about 70% of what the house is valued at in its current state. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you want to buy a house so like the way to make a perfect real estate offer is to basically you want to find the ARV of the house first. That's kind of where you start. You find the after repair value of the house, and then what you do is you multiply that by 70%. And the reason that you multiply it by 70% is what we just explained, because you want to pad in those holding costs and your profit. So you take your after repair value, which is what you think it will appraise for after you fix it up. So it's the repair value, or I'm sorry, it's the value after you rehab it. So you can't look at that house in its current state ever. You always got to look at the best case scenario. Like if I rehabbed it, what would it be worth? You start with that number, and then you subtract out 30% at a minimum. If it's a shitty area or a bad part of town, take out more than that 30%. Maybe take 40% off. So you multiply it by 0.7 to get 30% off. And then you subtract out the cost to fix it up. So again, we started with what we think it will be worth, but that's not what it's worth. That's not what it looks like today, right? Like we're projecting an image of a beautiful home that's all fixed up and updated, but it's not there yet. So we're going to start with that number, but then after we multiply it by 0.7, then we have to figure out how much it's going to cost to get it to be worth what we are projecting. So that could be 20, 30, 50, 200 grand. It could be anything, right? So then we subtract that out, and that's what we like to call our MAO, or our maximum allowable offer. That's the most that we can pay. So once we determine our max allowable offer, we don't make that as our offer. So let's do an example. We find a house that's going to be worth 200 grand all fixed up. All right, so 200,000, but again, that's what the neighborhood comps are selling for. Other houses that are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot that have recently been updated or rehabbed are going for that 200 grand. Okay, so we can assume that ours, if it's similar to those, and it's also a 3-bed, a 2-bath, 1,500 square foot, or it's very similar, very close, we can assume ours fixed up is going to be worth the same. So we take that 200,000, get my calculator out here, and we're going to times that by 0.7. That takes 30% off. That's 15% profit for me, and it's 15% holding, closing, sales commissions, you name it, seller concessions. It's all going to be included. So that 200,000 now becomes 140,000, right?
Yeah.
And then we projected the ARV after those repairs. Well, we haven't done the repairs yet. So what will the repairs cost? And let's say in this scenario, the repairs are going to cost us $35,000. Just a random scenario. That brings my MAO, my maximum allowable offer, to $105,000 on this property. But that's the most I can pay. So it would be really stupid of me to go in with that number, because then I have no room to negotiate up. And nobody likes to work with somebody that's not willing to work with them and negotiate a little bit, right? So if I get an MAO of, let's say, 105,000, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an offer probably more closer to the $90,000 or the $95,000 range, which would give me $10,000 to $15,000 to come up. All right. So the goal is most of these offers that we're making to people aren't liked, right? The offers aren't loved right away because they're low, right? However, the goal is to get the seller to come down anywhere between 80 and anywhere between 60 and 80%, and you to come up maybe 10, 15, 20%, right? So you want to meet in the middle, but it's not really the middle, right? It's your middle. Right, exactly. So that's really where you're at. So you anchor low by saying I can pay 90 to 95 grand, but in your head I can pay 105. But you don't ever want to start with that 105, because then you have 0 pennies to raise your offer. And people, again, they don't want to work with people that are stubborn, they're firm. You got to have some wiggle room, so pad that in. So that's called an MAO formula. It stands for maximum allowable offer. And again, the formula, just to recap, is your ARV times 70%, which is our discount rate, which again can fluctuate, but don't ever go above 70%, because then you're going to be cutting into your profits, right? And then take out your repairs, and that's your MAO formula. Now, if you're wholesaling a property, you have to add something to that equation. Here's why. All the investors are going to use that simple formula, and that's what they're going to buy on. So if you are going to go find a property and sell it to another investor that's going to be using that exact same formula, you have to be below that, right? So in this exact scenario, let's say that my MAO is 105, right? Well, let's say that your MAO is also 105. You think it's going to be worth 200 as well. The area is pretty standard and normal, so you're also at 70% in your discount rate, and you also agree that the rehab is going to be 35 grand, okay? So we both have calculated an MAO of 105 grand, and that's the most that you're going to be willing to pay. Well, let's say that I do make my offer, for example, at 95,000, and the seller is super motivated, so motivated that they don't even want to counter. They just say, we'll take it, right? Yeah. Well, now I have a property at 95 grand, and every other investor in the world is going to say, hey, that's a good deal at 105. So what I can then do is I can take that contract to buy it at 95, and I can sell it to you for 105. You go to the title company and close on it as if you are the buyer, and that 10 grand gets mailed to my house. I don't even have to go to the title company. So that's what a traditional wholesale looks like. So to modify your formula, it's the exact same formula, but you add in a wholesale fee, which is really a subtraction. So the formula looks like this. You have an MAO. You're solving for your maximum allowable offer. You start with your MAO, which equals the after repair value times your 70% discount rate minus your rehab minus your wholesale fee, right? So in this scenario, that wholesale fee would be 10 grand. So I always add a wholesale fee in, because even if I'm not wholesaling it, would you rather buy the property at 95 versus 105, even if you're going to keep it? I mean, why not? Why would you not want to pay less for something? So I always add in a wholesale fee, typically about 10 grand. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. It depends on the neighborhood and the price and how motivated the seller is, when you're talking to them. So a couple factors that are in play there. But for the most part, that's how we make real estate offers. We try to keep it simple, and we just use that formula, and we will determine our repairs, we'll determine our ARV via comps, and we'll add our wholesale fee in. And then from there, it's just basic arithmetic. So that's kind of where we're at with making offers.
I saw something on your Instagram I thought was real funny. One of the things you posted said, if you're not embarrassed about your first offer was too high.
100%.
It's kind of like what you're saying. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's 100% true too, because whenever my team or I is out in the field making offers on properties, I mean, it is kind of embarrassing sometimes when you're, why is this thing not working? Sorry, bud. Oh, there it goes. I'm trying to get this thing back on again here. There we go. Whenever we're out in the field, we're working, and we make an offer to a seller. Oftentimes, they hate that offer, and it's embarrassing for us to make that offer, right? Yeah. I mean, it really, truly is. So
oftentimes they go for it, right?
Oftentimes they will go for it, right? Which is cool, because when they do go for it, you're rocking and rolling. You just have yourself an awesome deal on a property that you can then wholesale for a big profit, and get paid really quickly. That's another thing about wholesaling, is typically to get paid on a wholesale deal is like 2 or 3 weeks or less. But if you rehab it, you're not going to get paid for 4 to 6 months. You have to buy it and do all this work to it, and then list it, and then go through all the process of the buyer's bank, analyzing the deal and approving them. It just takes a long time. So that's why I love wholesaling, because I can turn these properties over quick. I can get the profits from the deals within weeks, not months. And then, of course, whenever we go in on a good deal and we make a really low, embarrassing offer, and then they say, hey, we'll take it. It's like, well, shit. Instead of wholesaling this thing and making 20 grand, why don't we add it to our portfolio of rentals and have no money invested in it? And it'll be a rehabbed property that has a new tenant in there paying the highest rent, the market rent for the property. So again, that's kind of where where our business lies. We kind of have an in-office saying that's we all laugh at it, but it's real simple. But it's keep the best, sell the rest. Like that's literally the motto of our company. Let's do a lot of marketing and get a lot of people on the phone that are interested in selling. Let's make a bunch of offers, and the ones that are really, really, really motivated, we are willing to trade convenience to them for a discount. That's all that we're doing as real estate investors, specifically wholesalers. It's if you look at it, from like 10 miles up looking down, all that my business does is provide a level of convenience to a seller for a discount. And that's a really, really high level of convenience. Like, and I tell this to people on the phone all the time, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this to let them know where I stand. So the last 2 years, my company has purchased right at about 100 houses. I'd say 96 to 92, give or take, in the last 2 years. Each year we've done that many.
Wow.
So that's almost 200 houses in 2 years. But I tell people this all the time. I didn't need to buy any of those, not even one, right? Like if you want me to buy it as is, close really fast, which again, it could, is typically a couple weeks, require you to do no repairs and or no cleaning, then I need to get a good discount on it. Like, why would I go pay retail for a property or even buy something at a slight discount when that puts me at risk of losing money. I'm a business, and the definition of business is to make money. Look it up. It's literally 3 words, to make money. That's what business means. And we're a business, so we're never going to buy something at a break even or even a loss, right? Because that doesn't make sense. So we provide a level of convenience that is well above what an agent will offer their customer, because they can't guarantee that they'll buy it, right? They just can say, we're going to do what we can, and they may even offer, yeah, right. It's up to the market for the market demand for that to matter, right? And they also, may come in and say, hey, we'll give you a discounted rate, which will save you money in the end, but that's only if it sells. Whereas we don't come in at all and say, hey, we'll list it. Like, of course we have a brokerage, and if they don't like our offer, we'll happily list it for them if they want. But our pitch is never, oh, hey, let's list it. We think you'll get this. It's not our business model. Our model is, here's what we will pay you for it. If you like that offer, let us know. We'll get it in writing and send it over to you, and we can close in 2 to 3 weeks. We pay cash, and we buy it as is. So our offer is the way that it sits. And if you want to just walk away and leave every single thing in there, which happens a lot when you have hoarders, they don't want to clean it all out. They'll just take their clothes in their car and they're gone. And if that's what you want, that's what we will handle cleaning it out. Yeah. We just did one over in South City, St. Louis here where I live. Where do you live?
Central Florida.
Central Florida, perfect. So we just did one here in St. Louis, and the house isn't even that big. It's maybe 1,800 square feet. We had 5 dumpsters of shit come out of this house. Yeah. But that's also one of the reasons why the seller was willing and agreed to sell us the property, for so cheap, because we had offered them a level of convenience that was well above, where everybody else was at. Got to get my focus right here. I'm out of focus, guys. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, man. It's
you hear about wholesaling, but it almost seems like this magical unicorn, but you're saying that these deals do exist, and you're proof that you can do this over and over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done close to 500 deals in the last 5 years. So it's, almost 100 a year when you average it out. And there's motivated sellers everywhere. One of my good buddies, Brent Daniels, was saying one time, and I don't know where he got this statistic, but he was saying at any given time, 4% of the households, are either distressed by the person or distressed by the property, right? 4%. So that means that every 100 houses that you drive by, 4% of those people, 4 of them, are probably willing to sell their house at a discount because they need or want that level of convenience that we provide. I mean, really another way to look at what we do is we provide liquidity to the real estate market. The wholesalers do. Or the investors. I mean, there's a lot of investors who are wholesalers. There's a lot of wholesalers who are investors, but not always the same, But the investors and the wholesalers, we are the people that provide liquidity to the marketplace. Where else can you go and cash out on a piece of property, even if it's only 50 cents on the dollar? But where else can you go to get paid in 2 weeks on that property? Like literally, here's the deed, give me my money, right? You're not going to find that at a bank. They don't buy properties, right? You're not going to find that with a real estate agent, even if they can get you 97 to 100 cents on the dollar. It's not going to happen in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's where we're at. So a lot of times people will come to us and their level of motivation is and I want it to be up here, right? And it's not there. So I'll just say, hey, here's my offer. If you aren't in a hurry, go get an agent. You're going to make more money with that person. Like I don't need to buy it. However, if you need to sell it, and that's the key word here, folks, need. If somebody calls and they say, hey, I want to sell my property, come out and take a look at it and tell me what you think it's worth. Well, I'll say, well, why do you need to sell? And I'm basically just kind of mirroring what they said. They actually said, I want to sell. So I counter with, well, why do you need to sell? And if they just say, oh, well, I don't need to, I'm just kind of looking for offers. Well, I won't even go. I'll just look up the property on Zillow or my local MLS, get an estimated value of that property and cut it in half. And then basically say, so if I find a property for 200, like our example earlier, I'll say, without even coming out, I'm an investor. I don't pay retail. I don't need to buy it. If you need to sell it, I can help you, but I don't need to buy it. I'm typically buying houses in that neighborhood for anywhere between 90 and 100 grand. Does that sound like something that you're interested in? Because if you're not, then this is the end of our phone call, and I'll call you back in 6 months to see if things have changed. Maybe in 6 months, their motivation went from here to here, but I don't want the wants. I want the needs. I want those who need to sell their property. And those who need to sell their property, I can provide a freaking awesome service to them, a solution to their problem. And oftentimes their problem, the solution to that problem is just convenience. And that's it. That's all we're doing. So we're providing liquidity to the real estate market by offering convenience in exchange for a discount, right? I wrote an entire book on this, and that is the 2-sentence summary of the book. We are providing liquidity to the real estate market by offering convenience in exchange for a discount. We don't need to buy, but we will. I'll go buy 10 houses next week if I can get them all at 50 cents on the dollar, because I can turn around and I can flip them to somebody else for 60 or 70 cents on the dollar. And oftentimes I don't even need any of my own money to do it too. So that's the beautiful thing about wholesaling is you put a property under contract, and even if that property is $1 million, in order to get what's called equitable interest or equitable title, all you have to have is a contract to purchase it, and then that contract plus your earnest money opened in escrow. And for the dummies out there that don't know what escrow or earnest money is, you literally take a contract that you have to purchase it to a title company, and you put down a deposit, which is stated in the contract. And the deposit that we typically use is either $10 or $100. That's the standard depending on the price range of the property. It's very rare that I'll agree to go up to $300 or $500 unless I know I want to buy that property. And at that rate, it doesn't matter. I'm going to buy it anyway. But I can go out and I can control $1 million piece of real estate for $10. And I can have equitable interest in that property, and I can legally market. Now, here's the caveat. I can legally market the contract to purchase that property. Okay, so that's where people get mixed up. You can't market that particular property for sale because you don't own it. However, you can market your contract to purchase it, and that's what wholesalers do. They market their contract to purchase the property. And they don't even need to specify what that contract price is. They can just say, here's what I'm willing to sell it for. And that difference is the spread that they can make. So, sometimes these spreads can be massive. We just did one in January. I think it closed early February, actually. We made $104,000 on a single wholesale deal. We've done several that have been 30, 40, 50 grand too. Only one over 6 figures. But these deals do exist. They are out there. And again, it took me 10 years of passively buying rental properties and putting a ton of money down and going really slow to learn that there are people out there that are motivated and they are willing to sell you the property. The hardest part is finding those people, and that's where you have to have a marketing budget. So that's where it comes in, and I tell all my students that hire me to coach them how to do this. And that's, basically you need to have a budget. That budget can consist of time or it can consist of money. And obviously it can consist of both, but it has to have one or the other. And if you aren't willing to dedicate, let's say 10 to 15 hours a week to doing outbound marketing, cold calling, cold texting, door knocking, hanging bandit signs, whatever that might be, then I don't want you as a student because I can't help you. You got to put in the time. And if you don't have the time to dedicate, let's say that you work full time, but you want to wholesale on the side, that's fine too. But you have to have a budget of money that you can use to buy ads to get your phone to ring. So either you're outbound ringing people's phones or you're paying to get your message read or heard by people so they call you. So we, of course, do both. We do bandit signs, we do direct mail, and we're on the radio. So those are ways that people can reach out to us. They say, hey, I got your letter in the mail, or I heard your ad on the radio and I think it's great. I got a house I want to sell. They call us. So we pay for that. That's a budget of money. The other thing that we do, and again, I tell all my students, you got to have one or the other, if not both, is that we have full-time cold callers. We have 2 people that full-time cold call out, and they say, hey, we're buying houses in this neighborhood right now. We just bought one down the street. Are you interested in selling yours? And if they say, no, don't call me again, then we mark them as do not call and we move on respectfully. If they say, hey, I'm actually thinking about calling or thinking about selling, send somebody out. Let's see what you guys are willing to offer. And boom, we'll come across deals that way. So this business is incredibly simple, like incredibly simple. Like I just explained to you the entire business. However, it's not easy. And there's a difference between simple and easy. Simple is just the basic steps that you need to take to do it. The problem and the hiccup is where most people fall and fail is that they say, okay, this is great, let's do it, but they don't ever put a budget together of either time or money or both to actually be successful at this. If your phone isn't ringing with people wanting to sell you your house, then you're not doing enough marketing, right? And that could even be calling out, leaving voicemails on people's answering boxes. That's still marketing. But again, this is a marketing business. It doesn't become a real estate business until you actually buy it to fix it up and flip it, or until you buy it and you keep it as a rental property. In my opinion, the wholesaling business is a marketing business, not a real estate business. Whereas the landlording and the fix and flip, that's a real estate business. So people that are getting into this and they say, hey, wholesaling real estate sounds great. Well, it is. I freaking love it. I love doing it. But don't go into it thinking that you are going to be a pro real estate investor, because you need to learn to get into wholesaling and be successful at it, how to market, which is simple. There's only so many things that you can do. But when it comes to marketing, you got to get your message out there to people, which may mean that you pay for them to see it, read it, hear it, whatever. Or that may mean that they're answering a cold call or a cold text from you with you on the other line or somebody from your team saying, hey, I'm buying in this area right now. And by the way, I drove by yours the other day and it looks like it could use some paint. Not trying to be disrespectful, but the property could use some upgrades, and I'm upgrading other properties in the neighborhood. Are you willing to let me upgrade it too? Boom. That's how you find the deals. That's simple.
That's awesome. That's a lot of great content. You were quoted saying that multiple streams of income is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Right now in the times that we're living in, I feel like that's more. Are you noticing a difference in real estate now with all coronavirus and all that nonsense?
Well, yeah, everything's slowing down right now because nothing's open. People are scared to get near each other. I mean, this whole thing is just crazy. We've never seen this in our lives. Our parents haven't seen this in their lives. I mean, this isn't a recession. This isn't a depression. This is a pandemic. It's a totally different thing. So it frustrates me when people throw around terms like recession or depression. Well, yeah, it may put us into a recession, but we're not, and this isn't a recession. This is a pandemic. It's a totally different thing. So absolutely, yes, 100%, it's changed the business. But this is a temporary thing. Things will go back to normal. I'm not saying that it's going to take a couple weeks. It could take a couple months, right? We should understand that. People are hesitant to buy right now. So we've actually kind of slowed down buying, and we've done so by just adjusting the numbers. Now we don't pad in 30% like we were talking about earlier. We're up to like 40 or even 45% padding in for the holding costs, the profits, all these things, because the ARVs could greatly be affected if this does last 6 months to a year versus 6 weeks to a couple months, right? There's a difference there. So we've adjusted by making our offer amount lower, but we're still making offers on properties. We just bought 2 properties late last week, and really we're just kind of focusing this time on getting the current rehabs that we have finished up. Like, we have a lot of things in our business that's going on. So, since we don't have a ton of buyers running out there to buy our wholesale deals, we've kind of pivoted into saying, hey, let's make sure they're home run deals. So let's make lower offers, and let's use this time use this time wisely and work on things in our business that we can do to cut costs, as well as get more efficient with, but also, go work on all those projects that we have that it doesn't matter if the market goes up or down. Regardless of that, we have anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks of rehab left. So let's finish that up. Like, there's no reason to stop that. And the people that are working for us doing those rehabs that are on those crews, they rely on us to pay them. So it's not like we're going to stop that either. So absolutely 100%, yes, it's affected us. It's affecting everybody. But it's not affecting us to the point where we're going to like go out of business or throw in the towel. I mean, real estate's real estate. Everybody has to have a roof over their head so they don't freeze to death or get bitten by a snake or a crocodile or a mosquito and die, right? You have to have a house. And we are in the business of providing shelter for people. That's it. I mean, again, keep it simple. Everyone likes to overcomplicate everything. Everyone's going to have a house. So the way we look at it is, we have one of the most valuable things. The value of money could go way up, it could go way down, but at the end of the day, land is unique. You can't print more of it. Some may argue, well, they did it in Dubai. Well, that's fine. They spent $100 billion doing it, and they made a little tiny piece, right? I mean, that's so dumb. It's the dumbest fucking argument, pardon my language, that anybody ever makes, right? You can't make more of it. It's such a static thing. It's unique, right? So if the government pumps trillions of dollars into the economy and puts us into a crazy amount of debt, we have super inflation, guess who's going to benefit from that? If my property values go from 150 grand to 600 grand, my loans don't change. My loans are still 80, 90, 100, 110 grand. So if that does happen, I'm in a better situation than everybody is.
Yeah.
So I don't have a whole lot of fear, with what's going on right now. I mean, of course it's slowing things down. It has to. I mean, no one's going outside and wanting to work with each other. When I walk into the grocery store, everyone's like looking at me and they want to stay 6 feet away. I get it, but I'm not sick, like it's just a crazy time right now.
It is. You said you wrote a book. What is the name of that book and where can people find it?
Cool. Yeah, I wrote a book with my partner, Mike Slane. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate. And you can find it on Amazon. And the Kindle edition should be out by Thursday or Friday of this week. We've been selling the book for like a year and a half, 2 years, and I've just been kind of lazy and haven't had the Kindle edition up. But you can buy the paperback on Amazon. And again, it's just called The Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate. And we have a second book coming out soon, but it's not out yet. That book will be specifically on the BRRRR method, so buying, renovating, renting out, refinancing, and repeating the process. So that basically will describe how somebody could get into buying property or properties and building up a large portfolio of properties with little to none of their own money.
That's incredible. Yeah. I would encourage everyone, David Allen Dodge, right? Instagram.
Yeah, David Allen Dodge, ALAN is my middle name, and I had to throw that in there because everything else was taken that I wanted. So that's my IG, and I appreciate you letting me plug it, man. I have a lot of fun on Instagram. I get a lot of good feedback from my posts, and I try to be inspirational, but also, just kind of I don't like to be fake, so I just try to put out the message of positivity and also inform people and let them know that there are motivated sellers out there. They're everywhere. It's just a matter of you doing marketing to find them. And, once you can figure out how to do that, the rest is cake. So one last thing I would like to plug, if you don't mind. So I do have the book and the Instagram, of course. But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to listen to this and they're going to say, damn, I want more information, right? Well, that's great. If you want to buy the book, you can. However, if you want to take a free course on this, guys, I have built a free course. So I don't charge you a penny. And it's all about wholesaling. It breaks down what it is, how it works, how you can get started today, and some of the systems and processes that we use in our own business, I explain. And the course is called Free Wholesale Course, and the domain is that. The domain is literally freewholesalecourse.com. So go check that out. It's absolutely free. If you want to buy the book, great, but you don't have to. The course is basically a companion to the book. So it's the same material, but it's more videos and audio, versus reading. In that course too, we also have example contracts that you can download and actually start using. It's some of the same exact contracts that we use in our own business. So yeah, once again, freewholesalecourse.com.
Well, that's incredible. That's a no-brainer. I actually just signed up for that course a couple days ago, so I'm starting that course now. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, you can get through the whole thing in like maybe 2 hours, and that's if you watch every video from start to finish, So I mean, it's designed to be simple. Like, we don't want to overcomplicate it, because again, the business is simple. We want to keep it simple. Now, it doesn't, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. You got to put in the work. You got to put together a budget and get some mail out the door, or you got to sit down for 2-3 hours a day and cold call, right? Like, you got to put in the work. But beyond that, it's incredibly simple. And that's what the course does. It tries to say, hey, here's step one. Figure out your marketing budget and start doing some marketing. And then once you do that, then we can teach you how to, run repairs and run appointments and, build a list of buyers and all the things that come with it. So yeah, just check that out. But yeah, you can get through that whole thing in, probably about maybe 2 hours, something like that.
That's great. All right, David, anything else you want to add before we take off?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. Sorry I was having some camera issue, but I think we made it work out here today.
You're good to go, man. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and I hope you and your family stay well through all this craziness.
Oh, man. Hey, thank you so much for having me, Mitchell. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.